Hi, welcome back. I'm Chris Sikora, and we're going to step through exercise 7 using Autodesk AutoCAD 2021. This is a bit of an advanced lesson that we're looking at here, and you can see we're going to create this. This is actually one of those little grills that would go over like a fan that's on the back of a computer. They don't use them as often on computers like they used to. Now you see them on medical equipment and things like that, but it's pretty generic. And so we're going to step through now. You might say, well, what's really advanced about this? For the most part, not much of it is. But if you look closely at the actual little foot pads, these little, or I should say where the screws are going to hold it down or fasten it down, that's a three-dimensional bend that we're looking at right there. All right, and so we want to see how that's done. That's the gist of it. But then I'm going to show you some other techniques that might be useful for you in efficient modeling. So let's begin. First of all, the training guide I don't have written just yet. Hopefully I should. If you want to go to vertanu1.com, okay, and then go to the instructional manuals, you'll find this lesson in the Creo or the SolidWorks. You won't find it in the Inventor yet, but you could look at either one of those. I should have an AutoCAD one up here someday, hopefully. No promises on that. But inside that, you'll find on around page 75 or so, you'll actually see what we're trying to design here. And you can see this is the bend part. We're going to draw this front view first, so it's about 4 inches in height, actually 5.5 if you account for the radius. And we'll see how that's all put together, and there's a little opening there. And then we'll see the right side view here, and we'll go ahead and construct that as well. So let's begin. Go to New, and we're going to use the AutoCAD 3D. Those of you who are in other countries or even in the US, you might want to be using ISO, which is metric. My lessons are typically, there's only a couple of them that are metric, but this one is not. So though, just so you know, you would go to the ISO 3D and that will give you a metric version. But we're going to use the AutoCAD 3D, which is the Imperial version. Let's go ahead and click on that. And I like to start off, as always, with 2D wireframe. And then I go to Home and click on Top. Now we're going to start off by drawing a line. So go to the Line tool and turn your snap mode on just so you can snap to the center there. Click, drag this up, and just type in 4 and hit Enter. Make sure it's vertical. And then hit Escape. And let's go click on Top here for a fit. Maybe even scroll back a little bit so you can see the line. Now, the next thing we're going to do, we know the radius is 1.5. So let's go center radius, snap to that top point, click and drag out, and 1.5, and hit Enter. Now, at this point, I think we could turn off the snap to grid. And let's proceed now to go to the line tool here, and off of this point, click and drag down and cross over. Now, we're going to make this about 2 inches, and then hit Tab, and it's going to be 105 degrees. Okay, and then hit Escape. Now we're going to trim that up. Go ahead and trim through there. We could even trim this, and we could trim that, I suppose, or delete it, whatever you prefer. Now let's go to the Fillet tool and go to Radius, set it to 1 inch, hit Enter, and select this entity and this entity to get that radius in there. Now let's join it together, just so, because we're going to go ahead and extrude this soon. So go to Join, click and drag a fence to surround it, hit Enter, and now it's one complete entity. All right, now for the next one, let's go back to the Home button here, and we want to make the right side view, which is a little bend in there. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and click on right over here. This is the rotate. And we want to rotate around the y-axis. So select that. Now rotate by moving your pointer to the right so that the z is to the right side. click, and you'll see the grid will appear to the right. And there are other tricks, and I'm aware of that. I'm just showing you a way. This is a way that other people who used Inventor or other CAD systems out there that are plane-based can understand. We're basically rotating our sketch plane in this case. All right, now let's go to the front. Actually, go back home. We rotate this around. Oh. Okay. Oh, actually, I guess we could go to bottom. There we go. That's fine. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and draw some more geometry. So click on the line tool and snap to this point, drag it to the left, and it should be 1.5. So we're following that edge that we see. Now drag this down, and we want this to be, let's see here, 1 inch. Hit tab, and then we want this to be 45 degrees. All right, now drag this to the left, and we could have this extend beyond. So like we could even put 4 inches in there if we want, and then hit escape, because that's not going to matter so much. Now we could go to the fillet tool and go to radius, and we should be set for the 1 inch. You can just hit enter, and I'll select this and that, and then select this and that. Oops, hit escape, hit enter again, and then go back to radius. Oh, it was already set to that, that's fine. Enter, select this and that. There we go. So now we have the fillets on there. If we go back home, we can now see, there it is, and we're going to go ahead and join those geometries as well. So click on modify, go to join, select this little segment right here at fillet. There's a little tiny segment in there, this one here, and this one right here, and hit enter. And I'm aware that my dimensions are a little bit different than the training guide. Feel free to use mine or the ones that are in the training guide. There's just some slight variations to them. But in this case, I wrote the guide, so I'm not overly concerned. I'm just going with what's fast versus having to toggle tune from the manual. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to extrude these. So let's go to extrude, and we want to extrude this one here. Hit enter, and let's just extrude it about 3 inches in the downward direction. We didn't need it that deep. But now let's go back, hit enter to extrude, select this one, hit enter, and drag this off. We're going to go 4 and hit enter. Now let's shade this because it's going to be a little easier, I think, for you to see what we're doing. I'll go with shades of gray. Now what we need to do is get this sheet centered more. So let's go to move, click on move, find the midpoint. Actually click on the geometry first and then hit enter. Find the midpoint here, should give you a triangle, click, and it's okay. It says it's essentially it's going to blow away the curve connection. That's fine. We don't really need it anyhow in this one. Now move this over to where the origin is. Click, and essentially that just centered it. Now you can go ahead and hit escape to make sure you don't have anything selected. At this point, we're going to go ahead and do an intersection. So type in INT, and you'll see intersect. Click on it. Select this body, and then this one, and hit enter. And now we have a 3D curve. And let's dissect this a bit. Let's create a new layer here. So go to new, and we're going to make a curves layer. Okay, hit enter, and you could close that. Now let's select this straight one right here, and then this top one here. Go to the layers and just select curve. And now you could go to that same one and turn on the light or turn off the light bulb, and it should hide those. And what it's left behind is our 3D guide curve that we've just created. Let's go ahead and go back to UCS World. It resets everything for us. I had to hit it twice. I'm not sure why, but that's all right. Okay, and as we rotate, we can now see we have a nice guide curve that we could follow through with. Now what we're going to do, and again, we don't need to always do this. There's other ways, and if you have a way and you want to share it down below in the comments, go ahead. I know that there's probably a dozen ways to do this. Again, I'm just doing this for the benefit of those coming from Inventor or some other CAD system that's plane-based. We want to rotate about the X, and then make sure that the Y goes vertical. So see 90, so I just dragged that up and it snaps. Click. And then now we could go to the circle tool and make sure we go with center diameter and snap to that point. And this will basically, it rotated us 90 degrees and we want it to be 0.5 and hit enter. Now we could go to underneath extrude, find sweep. And actually hit escape before we do that. We need to join this curve first. So under modify, go to join and select them on an individual basis just so you don't accidentally select. And actually there's a few fragments here. Might not have been a bad idea to go through and just select the group there. We just want to make sure. Yeah, see, I missed that one. Let's go back to join. Just hit enter. Click on this. And there's little segments. So what we want to do with that is let's just click and drag a fence to surround all of these. Hit enter. And then hit escape. And that way we know that it's all one. Now look at that, when we click on that, we have control vertices to drag and adjust it if we want. Don't do that here. You can take it with it after you're done with the lesson and send it to me. But let's finish this first. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do our sweep. So click on sweep. The first thing you select is the profile, which is the circle we drew. All right, hit enter and now select the path. And we should see a preview. Actually, it's more than a preview, it's done. And there is our geometry. Now, before you go on saying, well, you know, what good is this? Imagine you could use this for an exhaust system on a car that has to weave around, wiring that goes around other entities in 3D. Okay, so there are other tools in here, and you have the manipulator handles that can maybe make it easier too, but this is just one technique. All right, now we're going to go ahead and do the rest of this body. So let's go over here to press pull. And let's extend this out. Now, could I have done this earlier? Absolutely, all in one. But let's make this 7 inches. Now, we're going to go ahead and we want to go with revolve. And on the filter, go with edges and select this edge right here and hit enter. Now it's asking us for how far we want this out. And let's make this 1.5 to the left. Notice I'm snapping. Enter. And then just drag it straight up. And this is basically our axis of revolution. It's going to give us the radius that we saw earlier. And just make sure it's at 90 degrees there. The height doesn't matter. Click. All right, now it's going the wrong direction, so hit reverse. And we only want this to go 45 degrees, so type in 45. Now you're probably wondering, why 45 degrees? We're going to double this up by mirroring it, and 45 and 45 gives you 90 degrees, so it's going to make this a 90-degree elbow for us. That's the thought process, at least. Okay, let's merge all these, or unite them. So go to Solid Union, and we could probably just select all of them. Hit enter and escape. And click on it, just make sure it all highlights. And we look good. All right, rotate this around so you can see that end there. And now, again, we're going to go with, we're going to go to mirror here. Actually, again, we haven't used mirror yet in this case. Let's go mirror and select the entity we want to mirror. Hit enter, okay? And then I like to use 3 points, especially on this. This is kind of a weird little entity here. So pick up on the quadrants. 1, 2, 3. And delete source, no. And there we go. So we've just moved this over to the other side. So there's our 90-degree elbow. Let's unite them. Again, you could just click and drag across. If you go from right to left, it selects everything in the bounding box. All right. If you go from left to right, everything has to be enveloped. That's selected. So anything that's sticking out is not going to be part of the selection. So that's why I went from right to left when making the bounding box. All right. So now we have our elbow here. Let's now go to the, again, we're going to flip this around, and we could rotate this around the y-axis. And you're going to see we're going to put some little circles for our revolve. Okay, so let's go over here. We want to go around the y. Or sometimes I just like to reset so we don't get confused. So go back to this little world there, make sure the Z is pointing up. And now we could go over here and we want to rotate around the Y. And the Z should point to the right and make it snap. See 90 degrees, click. All right. Now let's go home and we could go to bottom. And this is where I prefer to use wireframe again. And that also shuts off the perspective. And note, you could always shut off perspective if you type in here perspective. And then 0 is off, 1 is on. Perspective gives a vanishing point. Just like in real world, the room gets smaller the further you are away. That's the vanishing point that I'm talking about. By disabling that, everything is straight no matter how deep you're looking. Okay, now, actually, I think I'm going to switch to shades of gray. All right. And let's see here. Yeah, I think we should be able to do this. Let's flip this around. I think we want it to look, that looks good. All right, so basically we just want the top there. And notice you could drag it around or go back home and reset it and just keep flipping these little arrows until you get where you want, until you can see the top, and then click on the top. And if you want to rotate it 90 degrees, like I have it standing upright, that's fine. Or if you want to lay it down, that's fine too. Okay, now what we need to do here is we need to find the center of the model. And that's not very hard. And that's the center of the model to be, not the center of this one specifically. So go to line. And what we want to do is we want to snap, and we should turn on the snaps here. And you want to snap right in that center there. Click and drag it to the right or to the left, it doesn't matter. And the length doesn't really matter as long as you can see it. That's going to be our axis of revolution for the rings that we're going to create. Now what we can do here is we're going to go ahead and draw some circles. And I'm going to proceed to draw the first one up here. That's pretty good right there. And we'll make it 0.5. Okay, it's snapped right there. You can see I'm still on snap to grid. You could turn off snap to grid now. All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and click on that geometry and then go to linear or rectangular array, I should say. All right, now with the rectangular array, we have, you can see here, 4 columns, which we actually just want 1. And then over here, rows, we actually want 3. Actually, I'm sorry, 4. 4. And then the between, let's go with -2. All right, and we should see them right there. All right, we could actually make that 2.2, I suppose, or something else to just spread them out a little bit more. Oh, forgot. Let me type in negative again. -2.2. All right, looks pretty good. Hit close array, and now we're ready to revolve. So let's rotate this a bit, and we could go to revolve. And from the left to right, make sure you envelop those 4 circles, or you could select them individually. Hit enter, and then this is going to be what we're going to pattern around. Not pattern, but revolve. Okay, now here's the thing. We're going to go ahead and have this go 100 and I guess we could do the 45 first. Let's do the 135. Oh, and we're going to reverse it. 135. Okay. All right, now we're going to do those same ones again and add 45 to it. So for the filter, if you just turn on edge temporarily, remember, sometimes you have to turn off. This has like a little AI in it, I think, that turns it off automatically sometimes, which is really nice. So anyhow, we're going to select these. Hit enter. And let's go ahead and select that point, this one. And this is just going to go 45. Okay, so 135 and 45 equals 180 degrees. Let's merge everything. So go to Union, and I'm just going to go from left to right, or right to left. Hit enter. You can see everything is connected now. It's all one. And now we could go to Mirror. Now for Mirror, we just select the entity, hit enter, and now we could use some points here. We could select that point there, this quadrant here, and that. Hit no. All right, and so basically we made a mirror plane. And there it is. Now you might notice that this one's a little different than the last one I made. Let's merge it. Okay, in terms of I made more of an opening gap there. That's more realistic. I had actually originally made the inside radius 1 inch, and I just upped it to 1.5 inches. So that's when we did that revolve in there. Okay, let's unite all this. Click and drag a fence to surround it. Hit enter. And you can now go to, can make it look a little bit better under realistic. And there you have it. And that's a pretty advanced lesson. Just to show you here too, if you type in perspective, there it is. And see it's set to 0 right now. Turn it to 1 and watch what happens. It gives that vanishing point. Looks a little bit more realistic. Looks nicer for renderings, things like that. Okay, that concludes this exercise. I hope you enjoyed it. See you with exercise 8.